Thank you, as always, for listening to Caleb vs. Self. In this episode, I get to speak with Magnus, a Rochester artist, member of the Anomaly Film Festival, and a kindred spirit, quite frankly. We talk about his start in radio, internet radio, podcasting. We talk about his passion for art and film. We talk about the reason why he didn't become a marine biologist. We cover all sorts of stuff. He was a fantastic conversation. I hope to be able to get him on a few more times. I'm pretty sure I could just talk to him forever, to be honest with you, but neither here nor there. If you love what he does, if you love what he was talking about, check him out, please, at Magnus Apollo on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, just all of them. Check him out. Check him out on Patreon as well. Support him and his work there. I hope, again, to be able to get him on. It was so much fun, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. All right, Magnus, I know we just talked like for 45 minutes beforehand, but I appreciated every single second of it. So anyway, thank you for hopping on, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. I enjoyed that myself. A good ramble, it makes me happy. I needed it for today.
So how I came to find you, obviously, is through Matt. And of course, Matt was like, well, check out Mind of Magnus. So I did, naturally. And my first question starts with Mind of Magnus and just talking with people. How did you fall into, first of all, radio? And second of all, just talking to people the way that you do?
Well, I have the face for radio, I tell people. So that's how it starts this way. I love talk radio. I love radio. Like, I'm not a music guy. I'm a person that would always listen to talk radio. Between me and you, my goal is to be the guy who's like midnight, late night call-in guy. Like, you saw a werewolf? Tell me more. You know, that's what I want, because I want the random weird stories. But I started doing radio early on. Like, I was a young kid, and this is kind of funny. So I went to a radio station when I was it was like 18 or so. We went to, or 17, 18, went to a radio station for like a college trip or something else. And we walked in, hung out, and I inadvertently made friends with, because I was kind of a quiet guy back then. I make up for it now. I warn everyone. I'm not quiet anymore now.
Right.
But I hung around at the radio station, and I was impressed. I thought it was really kind of cool. Oh my gosh. And it was back in Rochester, back when the radio stations were over on Winton Road. So the next day I went back, and because I kind of made a connection with a couple people, and, you know, shot the shit and said hello. And the next day I went back, and I was like, I just kind of hung out for a little bit, and there, like, I had no desire to do anything weird or something else, but I was like, just want to hang out. And I inadvertently got some coffee for people, and I just kind of showed up, and I told them, like, oh no, I'm here just to help out. I'm with a college class. And I kind of forced myself to be an intern for a month or so at a radio station. And I would just literally, I had no problem, just get coffee. And I realized then I watched corporate radio happen, and I watched people constantly throwing people under the bus. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I wanted to be like, I thought it was gonna be a cool radio adventure. And I saw early on how they were kind of treating each other. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, it's just like a corporate job. It's just you don't get, like, people are moving around a lot. I'm like, I don't know. And so at that point in time, the internet was just kicking off. So this is probably late 90s, early 2000. And I was on a bunch of web boards talking away. Like, part of my day job was actually being, I was an admin for a huge web board community of like 15,000 people. And I would admin different things here and there, and I'd help other websites out. I ended up helping out a couple people getting, it was an online radio station going. Okay. And it was like, you know, I mean, I forget what the name was now, but they're pulling in different people, and they're like, wait, you can do radio on the internet radio. Oh my gosh, this is great. So I started filling in and helping out. I'd be like a remote reporter for a couple radio shows. And there was a couple shows out of Detroit that I inadvertently hung out with. Was kind of cool. One was like this, one of the first internet radio shows that was paranormal, was like Ghostly Talk or something with a weird name. Okay. And one of the first, they were being broadcast on terrestrial radio as well. It was a segment being sent out. So I became their New York reporter for them. And the New York reporter was cool because they were like, hey, there's a random weird news. Go check it out for us. And I'd report on it. And they would pay me money. Not a lot, but it'd be enough gas money to get back. And sure, for a guy in his early 20s, good enough for me. You know, there's like, I get a phone call. It's like, someone saw a Bigfoot up in Adirondacks. Go check it out. I'm like, gone. Sure. I would hop in the car and just dash away. And my vehicle at the time, I had a pickup truck that had, the back of the truck was like a sleeping bed. It had drawers. I could live in the back of my truck for a week, no problem. I even had food in there because I would just like go on camping trips sporadically. So I had I could just go from work at the time, work for a design studio, and hop in my car and drive someplace and be there within a couple hours and just crash there for the night, record, meet people, whatever I need to do. And I was having a blast. And I started doing more shows, and I started doing more segments. And so the Mind of Magnus is my radio show I have done. And the name came about thanks to one of the web boards I was on. Some guy gave me a section of his web board and like, I like this. This is a cool idea. And he named it. He's like, oh, you like the Mind of Magnus. I want to see what the mind's coming out. So I kind of adopted that name.
Gotcha.
And then so I started realizing that all these shows, they always needed some little extra time. So I started doing these 5-minute, like, kind of news of the world, no, a weird world news kind of idea, like bizarre stuff I had read. And I would sell these little like 5-minute segments to these shows. And just like, it was like $25. Mind you, I realized later on, I met a guy, he sold them for like 500. No wonder they're like, I totally underpriced myself inadvertently, not knowing this. So I started getting picked up these little segments, and this is probably early 2000s. It was, again, podcasting is just starting to happen as I'm doing it. So I started doing these little segments of weird news, which is fun, but you have to constantly look for weird news. You're just searching for things. And I realized my favorite part of doing it is when I'd be sent to these remote locations and just be like, so who saw this giant flying bat thing? And they're like, oh, Susan over there. And I just was like, oh, that talking to Susan was the fun part of this scenario. So I inadvertently, I kept doing these radio stuff, but I kept pushing myself to want to be on the air talking to people. And so I had done a couple podcasts with people. I started doing some other segments. But they kept trying to put me as like the Andy Rooney guy at the end, like giving my 2 cents, So, and that's the reason I don't eat, wafers anymore. Like random bizarre things. I'm like, That's not what I want to do. I want to pick someone's brain. I want to learn something different every day and meet someone new. That's my goal in my life. And so I wasn't doing my own podcast yet. And then there was a chance, a radio station was happening here in Rochester. It was a kind of a Rochester free radio.
Yep.
And they contacted me and like, listen, we love how you just talk to people. We want to have you do that on a show. You have an hour-long show. If you want to do it, jump in. And actually, it's a funny thing. The name of the show is going to be something like Around the Rock or something else. And I show up the day and the guy's like, oh no, we changed the name to Mind of Magnus. We like that name. So we're using that name. I was like, okay. So I ended up, and I was the very first show. I was a kickoff show for the radio station. And my show, oddly enough, was the highest rated one on their station. Not there was a lot. I'm not saying there's like, this is like millions of people listen, but sure. I still had the highest number out of that. So I'll take that as a win. So I just started having every Monday night, I had to find someone to come in and talk with me and share their stories. And there's not a theme. I don't I only talk to artists. I only talk to truck drivers. I'm like, tell me your story. And that's how it started. And so I did it. Excuse me, for years, I was just sitting and like microphone, live mic, like 8-second delay at best sometimes. And I would just bring people in and want to talk with them. And it hooked me. Like I having a chance to sit down with a microphone in front of people. And it's always been a passion of mine, but be able to do it now that podcasting is happening, now everything else, it just kept growing that way. So that's how it started way back in the day, doing internet radio, turning into real terrestrial radio. And then I'm the only guy going in reverse. I'm the only guy going from radio to podcast because I like podcasts better because I like swearing. So I like to be able to say every once in a while, not like, gosh darn, that was scary. It was like, motherfucker, do you see that giant monster in the corner? Like, I want people to give me their 100% of the story, not edit. Like, Yeah.
That raw format, really.
Oh my God, raw format. Because someone's in the mode and telling their story, I don't want to have to feel like they have to edit themselves. Like there is something about a story where you can see people reliving it, where like I know that like I had the random stories. I had my Halloween stories were my best. Like every year I would pick everyone telling me their best ghost story, something else. And there's some people that are like analytical. They're like, I don't believe in ghosts, but this is the time I saw the ghost. And you're like, and that guy is so excited about a story because he's got to tell it. And he's literally, you can see him, he's like processing it. And he's like, oh man, and I was fucking scared. And like in the radio, he's like, oh, had to hit the button. And then he gets all nervous and he's like, oh, I shouldn't. And you just watch the moment where they have to like edit themselves. You have to pull it back for a second. And the moment's gone. Yep. And no, oh my God. Now that we're in the podcasting world, I've enjoyed, like I've only done a handful of podcasts now that my radio show ended, but I'm going to do more. But like I enjoy being on other people's podcasts. I want to like let them do all the hustle, get everything going. I want to show up and meet people that way.
Gotcha.
But dude, the podcasting world, I have learned the truth, like the true story, which I never could get in the radio station. In your radio station, you have an hour to do it. Okay, thanks for coming in. And like you and I were saying, the best part of the conversation is about an hour and 20 minutes after the thing starts.
100%.
So, oh my God, the last hour is like, okay, thanks for coming in. Oh, and here's the rest of the story. I was like,
where does that? I mean, so obviously growing up, you probably were impacted by talk radio. in
Oh, yeah,
some
because
way,
I grew
shape,
up in
or
the
form.
country. Yeah, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have cable. I didn't have television. I mean, I had like 5 channels, and it was fine. But I'm a night owl. So if you're a night owl, do not have a lot of options in the rural Western New York area. You have a couple of stations that play the same 12 songs over and over again, and then you'd find these other ones like there'd be like Coast to Coast AM, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Like we're just a guy talking away, being like, Art Bell, like, okay, now we're here talking about the aliens coming out. Like, and again, I don't believe in a lot of these things I'm hearing, but to hear a person tell a story, oh my God, that was awesome. And
Well, to hear someone too just be able to fill up 4 hours worth of time is outrageous. I mean, for me,
yeah.
you're talking about being a night owl. For me, growing up, it was Loveline with Adam
Oh
Carolla and
yeah.
Dr.
Oh my
Drew.
God, Adam Carolla, Dr. Drew. Yes. Oh my God, I love that. Dude, I learned so much, and Dr. Drew still does that too. Like he's a talented man. My God.
Yeah. Well, he's everywhere now. But then I didn't know him from anything else. I just knew Adam Carolla from The Man Show.
Yeah.
And I was flipping through the radio one night, and they were just on. And I just knew they would be on, and they were on like Monday to Friday every single night at like 11 o'clock. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Sure.
a lot of sex education, right, from them.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say
No,
unfortunately. It's probably pretty
unfortunately,
good.
that's I am a better person because of Dr. Drew. I'm not going to lie. Here's another one. Another person, and I love the concept of having a smart person and a quick-witted comedian. Dr. Drew is a very intelligent man, but having a person that can like diffuse a moment when you can clearly see a caller is having a moment trying to figure something out. Adam Carolla was good enough that he could make a joke enough that they would kind of laugh. Then Dr. Drew would step in, and be like, and here's the reason, and would suddenly like give the logical understanding why or what's going on here. But still in a playful, wasn't dry. Like that probably is a great reason I love doing a show with someone like Matt, who we had mentioned before, Matt Austin. He is the Beer Review Journal.
Yep.
He does Anomaly podcast and that sort of stuff. Having someone else on the show allowed for a dynamic that I realized early on. Like I love doing a podcast myself, but I want to be with someone and want to talk with someone. And like I said, the Drew and Adam Carolla, that was solid. I mean, that's another one that I probably really enjoyed too. So
that was
thanks for
one of the best ones for me ever. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
Keeping going with that, what was it for you? I mean, you coming from more of a country background, more you're a farmhand, obviously. What is it then eventually that got you from being the quiet, larger guy who's a farmhand growing up to, I mean, I'll say what people say about me. I never shut up.
You have to warn people now. So what it was, my original, when I was a kid, I was always a tall kid. I was the biggest kid in my class, but I was very much like, that cartoon Recess, the big quiet buddy in the background.
Yep.
Very much like me. I was, but listen to me talk now. I talk fast. I kind of stumble over things. I'm very excitable. When I was younger, I talked even faster, so I got made fun of. I was like, and I grew up in a rural school. My class is 50 kids. You know what I mean? So when I was like second or third grade, I got made fun of for talking weird. So up until 12th grade, I was kept myself quiet because I didn't want to be made fun of. Not that I probably was going to be, but I was very much a quiet kid. But I love learning. I love talking to people. I'm very curious, but being out in the country, I wasn't able to expand who I was. I was kind of set as a character. And so fast forward, I go to a quick kind of like drive-through college, I call it. Like I went to like a Bryant Stratton sort of college. I actually went to Bryant Stratton. And because I wanted to get something quick. I want to get out of the country. So I found the fastest way to get out of school was a trade school. So I jump into a trade school, and when I first show up, there is an interpersonal development class, and no one knows me there. And I'm hanging out, and I'm just kind of like, I may crack a couple jokes, and suddenly the person next to me they kind of laughed, and we're hanging out. And I realized I could instantly not be the person I was for the past 16, 17 years because it was all new. And I was sitting there not kind of thinking about it. And the teacher called like, okay, we're dividing groups up. So we're going to find the outgoing, charismatic people and put them all together. And she pointed at me. And I was like, I literally turned behind me. I'm like, you're not talking about me because I'm the quiet one in high school. So I'm like, oh, wait, no, I'm actually talkative, having a blast. And people were legit enjoying what I was saying. And I suddenly kind of realized, I'm like, I don't have to be the quiet person out there. And at the same time, I'm going from a rural country to the city of Rochester. You know what I mean? Quote, air quote, city of Rochester. It's a very small city, but still a city nonetheless. Mm-hmm. Suddenly I'm surrounded by people, and I enjoy people, and I enjoy, all of a sudden I'm meeting new people, and they're telling me their random stories. And I was just like, I wasn't starved for attention, but I was clearly a person that was missing out on a diversity that I'd never encountered. Like I had a very like Leave It to Beaver sort of upbringing. Like my parents are still married. They're very awesome people, but they're like kind of quiet. There's like, and suddenly I find myself in a universe where I get to talk to people, interact with people, hear their stories, and people want to tell their stories. So it wasn't much long. I mean, I went from like I got hired within 3 months of me going to college. I got hired by one of my instructors. They liked me so much. They're like, dude, you want to work for me? I was like, yeah, sure. My God. So I started working for a thing, and I had a good design job, and I had time. And that's why I started working with going to the radio station and volunteering time. Like I had no problem getting coffee because I could hang out and watch someone like do stuff. And the guys on the air and put like big red on the air. Every time it's funny, I was a dork. Every time that big on the air sign came on, I was like, oh, he's on the air. Like I was excited about it. I'm like, oh, I'm a dork. Jesus Christ, this is horrible. But the change was I moved to an area that had more people, and the nature of me who wants to learn more about people, it was the exact thing to stoke that fire. And I never let it stop. I realized, people, like, I talk fast, and if people can't keep up with me, I mean, like I tell people, I talk fast, but I'm worth it. If you hang on the conversation, you'll enjoy the conversation. You just got to go along with me on the ride. So, and I've learned, like, I've actually slowed down a bit as I gotten older, but I'm a person that I had a friend of mine once. He was like, I was talking on one of my podcasts. I have another fast talker on there.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy messaged me. He's like, I love the show, but I had to put the show at 0.5 speed to be at my level. I was like, I understand, because I put everyone else's podcast at 1.5 speed. That's how I listen to my podcast. Everything I listen to is at 1.5 speed. Not that I'm saying this is not that somehow, like, when I say this, people think like, oh, you're trying to say you're smarter. I'm like, no, I'm just fast. Like, there's no intellectual aspect of listening and talking fast. It's just like my RPMs are just higher. It's
hard to do that too, because I do actually the same thing, believe it or not. But when I do that, when I try to read, nope, not working. No. It doesn't work.
Yeah, my reading speed, I'm a slow reader, but I'm a fast talker. And I'm the exact same way. Like I'll reread a sentence 3 times to kind of process it and read it and digest it. But if someone's talking to me, oh my God. Side note, during this time of my life, I've moved to the South twice and moved back very quickly. Like I lived in Memphis for like literally 2 weeks.
Okay, like, Memphis. Where else?
Memphis. I was looking down to Florida too, so I went down. Okay. Like I looked down there because I have family down there, and they kept like, "Come on down, we'll find you a job." I went down there and being like, "Oh, I'm way too fast. Like you're not from around here." Memphis was the worst. I mean, like I love Memphis, but if you go outside of Memphis, like I was staying kind of near college town, so it's all kind of mix and match. I went outside of Memphis, and everyone there is so slow talking, like so. And I'm like, "Finish the sentence, man. Finish the sentence. Finish the sentence. You can get there." Oh God, I'm like, I gotta go. It's like they would make me say things because it sounded funny, and then I would ask them to say the same sentence because they had such a horrible accent. Like outside of Tennessee, rural Tennessee has an accent that is impressive in the way of being like, "What? My God!"
I was in and out of Texas for almost 5 years. So anytime you Texas. Go outside of Post, it's very similar. Mm-hmm. You've got that long draw, that slower speed. It is what it is, and it's like, nope, I got shit to do. Bye.
Thank you. Oh my God, you get it. Few people get that and be like, I gotta go, man. I'm like, I'm glad to hang out, but like 5 minutes to say hello is a lot, Like, oh my God, yeah. I have avoided Texas for the exact same reason.
But they welcome you with open arms. I mean, like when I got invited I went to basic training, and I had a guy that I bunked with, super nice guy. I went over to his parents' place for Christmas. The nicest people on the freaking planet.
Oh yeah, there's nothing negative about it. They thought it was a novelty. Like, this guy he's a New Yorker. He's so fast sounding. Listen to this fucking guy. Ha ha. And like I said, I would go out. My friend Tamara, and I lived in Memphis. Like I went down. I visited friends of mine. I had this girl I was kind of hanging out with. She went down to college down there. Long story short, I went down to visit her, and she was just doing her own thing. And I made friends with all these people in Memphis. Like she picked me up from the airport, and then I didn't see her until she dropped me off at the airport. I was like, it was just kind of I sensed it. We landed. I'm like, you know what? It was kind of like an online thing. Like, and we're like just talking. So we showed up. I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. We instantly knew it. And I'm like, but don't worry about me. I'll find my own thing. So I made friends with all these people in Memphis. And Memphis is a gorgeous city. Same thing outside of town. Like I got invited to like friends' families. Like, listen, we're going to, back home to have dinner with her dad was a pastor. Oh my God. Her dad was a Southern Baptist pastor, like full on, like intense sort of like hand cheering. And I love that. Like, I'm not religious in the slightest, but to experience other people's lives
sure
is amazing.
How has that translated into your artwork? How does that, I mean, as far as talking to people, as far as, your creativity and your inspiration, where does
The,
that?
my artwork is because of that. My artwork is because how I learned to do artwork is by hanging out with other artists. I'm not like, and that's, I'm 100%. If I didn't socialize, I would not be where I'm at right now. I was doodling at best, and nothing against it. Like my earlier drawings were just fun drawings. I was seeing this girl years and years back, and I would send a drawing to her. She was going to school. She was away. She was getting a master's degree, so she was in a different city. And every day I would send her a drawing on a postcard, just like a sketch. So I was practicing. Like it didn't really matter because I wasn't doing art. It was just me doing a drawing, sending it out. And this is when Instagram just started going on. So I just had a content. I just sent a picture, and I wasn't thinking about it, but most of my feed was my doodles. Like, and I'd have pictures of me, my dog, and whatever it was going on there.
Sure.
And but I would hang out, and I just suddenly met other artists in town, and I got asked to be in this group called the Dudes Night Out, and it was this, and they like, hey, we're going to do some art, come out and hang out with us. And so I show up at this and the table, and every single person at this table are artists that I know in Rochester that are like artists, like not me. I'm a doodler, and they're like, okay, we're putting art together, so I'm pulling all these cool artists in Rochester, and I'm like, so why am I here? Like, and the exact same day or so, or within that week or so, I get asked. I get asked to be in an art group with the guys. And like I said, I can draw. I can do like pen and ink.
Mhm.
I can do like pencil drawings. Like I'm not incapable of drawing, but I'm not anything I would call any sort of artist. And the exact same week, there's an Eric Lehman had he's an art gallery owner in Rochester. He used to have a gallery called 1975 Gallery. And he walks up to me. He's like, hey, dude, I'm having an art show. I want you to be in it. And I turn around behind me. I'm being like, again, like, wait, me? And he's like, yeah, I see your drawings all the time. Do you want to be in an art show with me? We're doing a Halloween show or whatever theme it was. No, it had to been sometime in springtime because it was like snowed out. So the very first my very first art show, I had 2 art shows the same day. Like literally, I've never had any art show, and the very first time I do an art show is the same day as both openings are on the same day for this thing. And so I'm hanging out with these artists, and I'm enjoying it. Like I have some cool stuff on the wall. I definitely like everyone else had a nice ease of doing things. Me was like, this was a month of me fucking trying to get, like, again, I don't want to be the shittiest guy on the wall. I want to be the person that's not the like look around being like, okay, I'm the worst one here. So it raises the bar. Well, the Dudes Night Out is a great group of just very talented guys who are just, and girls. Dude was non-gender specific, and it was just awesome people hanging out doing stuff. And I'd be drawing, and we'd hang out. We'd go drinking at a bar. We did a show every month. Like every month for almost 2 or 3 years, we had a new show up at different bars. So I'm hanging out, and how I learned to paint is literally by sitting next to an artist and talking with him as we're like as he's telling his story about his life. I'm watching the person like use a paintbrush that way, use a watercolor brush this way, different techniques, and I'm staring at him like, that's how you do it. So literally, it is a direct correlation between my ability to talk to people and my ability to have my own design studio now. If I did not talk to people and meet new people and learn new things every day, hanging out with different artists, I have no idea where I'd be right now. But my studio is thanks to my ability to socialize, interact, interview in a sort of weird way. But yeah, so it is a direct 100% correlation. Like, and I always tell people, it's thanks to being around other artists that my skill set is where it's at.
So would you say that no matter what it is you want to do, whether it's art, whether it's podcasting, whether it's, I don't care what it is, would you say that trying to find a community is one of the most important things you can do to support whatever it is that you're trying to do?
For me, it is. I know some people that are very like they want to take their knowledge and go into a room and refine it and then show up with the knowledge base. Like my brother is a person that I think you can give him information and then he'll squirrel away and then come out and impress you with a skill set. But me, I don't need to have. I find that to be something that he wants to have himself be shown. I want to learn how to do things, and how I have learned is by throughout my whole life. I've showed up for places and just volunteered my time for 2 weeks to learn how to do something. Like I'm big enough I can carry things. I can at least carry boxes around for you. So I have had like that's like doing the radio station.
Mm-hmm.
I just showed up. I showed up and I'm like, listen, I don't need to be paid. You need to get coffee? I'll get coffee. And those I learned by being somewhat of finding a master level person and just helping them out and then seeing if I like it. Like I have learned more from being in a person's studio for a month and just helping them out than I ever would have done for a semester of college. So, but I think finding a community, is nice. I mean, not only do you have a supportive community, you have someone, if you find a good community, and I say a community in the sense that you sense you're part of it, you can be a voice in there, and also you trust the voices that are talking to you as well. Because I was critiqued by friends. Like if you're by yourself, it's a machine that's just by itself. You can't study the machine if you're inside the machine. You know what I mean? You can't get an outside perspective. So a community offers a voice being like, hey, if you add a blue color here, it pops better. Hey, if you use this, like, it doesn't have to be like a massive critique, like this fails, like art on the wall. But a community allows me to learn from others, learn quicker from others. Because like I said, I don't want to be the worst guy on the wall, so I'll definitely challenge myself. It raises the bar that I have to be above every time. So I personally say, if you can find your community, you can find a community. It doesn't have to be your community. Just find a community that like accepts you and brings you in. You will leapfrog further than you ever like. And I'm a person that fully believes that if you put enough energy into something, like I don't think that, like, barring, like, I'm not probably good with accounting. It's just monotonous, but like given enough information and data and being around there, like you can pick up a skill set. Anyone can paint. I can teach anyone how to paint a happy sunset, but it's like there's certain skills that being around in a community, the refinement, the support, but like there's something about the social monkey that is me that finds a stronger abilities after being in a community. Like I'm just stronger for it. So
is that how you find yourself on all sorts of random projects? Like, for example, Who Would Jesus Date as a disciple?
Oh my God, the movies, yeah. My IMDb, yeah. I've actually I got to add some other movies on there. Yeah.
Oh, do
that's
you?
Another one.
That's the only one that was on there right now.
Dude, I want to add more. I helped co-direct a movie 2 years ago, a little short film. And I made some monsters for movies too. So how that happened. So Who Would Jesus Date is a short film that my friend I'm drawing a blank her name right now. She's an awesome person. I can't think of her name. The director there. She messaged me. She's like, hey, do you want to be a disciple? I was like, yes. I mean, if you ever ask that question, the answer is always yes to it. And because they just had found there was a scroll in the Dead Sea Scrolls that talked about the wife of Jesus being Mary or something else. And then so Needy, that's her name was Needy. She goes like, so what's if Jesus married, what is dating of Jesus like? So she puts this whole short story of Jesus going home to meet Mary's dad and this whole dating profile the whole premise was the last scene is the Last Supper is actually the bachelor party. So you have to be like, you have to be, oh my God. And it is like, I should show you, there's a photo of the whole, like the Last Supper scene. We're like all drinking and we all freeze frame in the exact right pose. It's a piece of art. Just the last scene of this. Oh my God.
It's at the end of the actual film. You guys pause for just a split second and it's almost spot on.
Dude, and that's the first take. Like it is spot on first take. Really? Should we do another one? Like, we'll try it. We could do it again. But the first one is the first take. My God. Yeah. So that's it. Like if you approach me like, hey, I have a zany idea. Yes. Like I have done the randomest things because I am enjoying myself. Like sometimes I tell people, I think I'm retired. I don't know if I'm like legit working because some of these jobs I'm working on, I'm like, I'm just enjoying myself. But yeah, that's another one. Like I had forgotten about that.
That
My
one
God,
was funny because I actually watched it the other day to see if I could.
No shit, really?
I did. Yeah. I think it's on YouTube, but I was watching it, and the part where Jesus's potential wife here, she insinuates that she was dating Buddha at one point, and like other religious figures is pretty hilarious.
Dude, it was a fun. I tell people like if I'm gonna get into hell for something, I guess I get into hell for that. At least it's a fun story. Oh my gosh! But oh my God, you saw the movie, not just look it up on IMDb. Oh my God, yeah.
I found it the whole time. I'm like, where is he? Where is he?
Oh, at the very end,
where is he? Where is he?
Oh my God! It's at the end. at the very end, I'm like looking at Jesus. I forget the characters, the patron. So if you're looking at the center of Jesus, looking at thing, I'm to the right and two over.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think at one point you were juggling apples, maybe.
Oh yeah, I think so. Because
was it you?
Yeah. I was juggling apples. I was doing a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I think I was juggling apples because I was sitting there and they're like, "Can you do that again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can juggle apples."
I think that made it into the.
Yeah. Oh my God, there was so much. We were just all drunk in a garage, just filming. Like, okay, this is just go nuts, guys. So like, we're doing like beer pong with grapes and wine glasses, like, and they're like just doing randomest shit. Oh my God, but that was it. She approached me the right way. I'll say yes to just about anything. So
that's a dangerous thing to say out loud.
I know. As soon as I said it out loud, but again, it's my choice. I can say no to things. Like but I'd much rather get an option given. I'd much rather, if I'm coming to a choice in my life, I will choose the one that gives me the best story.
Mm.
Like, and it's how I kind of like my choose your own adventure pages.
Yeah.
Like, I can play a safety, and sometimes I do. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it'd be like, hey, do you want to travel to X and do Y? Like, maybe not, but usually what it is, if I have an option given, I'll process what is the best thing that, if I'm thinking back on this, what's my best story of my life? So I tend to choose my story of my life by the best, like, interesting anecdotal reason to choose yes to an answer. But yeah, IMDb. I am on Who Would Jesus Date? I was on a movie 2 years ago now. It was right before COVID started. We actually had to cut it short, but it was 10 is the numbers 10 11 no 10 12 11 is the name of it, which is, I can never remember the numbers, which is horrible to say for a guy who helped direct a movie. But I helped like I was directing it. I did site location. We actually filmed it on my family farm, of all things, too, because it was
Nice.
gorgeous for the shot.
Sure.
And that one actually is the drone footage alone is amazing in this film. I gotta say, not gonna lie, actors are phenomenal. But I'm also working on stop motion monsters right now. I'm currently working with a guy who's doing this little stop motion monster flick. So I'm making all these stop motion monsters, like very much like
Really?
Gremlins. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So is it like
Will work.
so
ahead,
you
sorry.
say Gremlins, but there's is it like the one I just watched one not too long ago with my kid. Cujo.
Oh my
No,
god,
not
the
Cujo. Not
Cujo's a killer dog one.
Yeah,
You're
that's
thinking
the
of
killer
Critters?
dog I'm thinking of. No, not Critters. Kubo.
Oh, Kubo's three strings.
Yes.
Like that.
I think
Okay.
that was stop motion, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's stop motion. This one here, he's making everyone else's live action, and the creature is an 18-inch tall, fuzzy monster alien thing.
Gotcha.
So it's got a clay face and hands move around. And Melvin the Devourer, his name is Melvin the Devourer. Check it out. And he wants to do a whole bunch of stuff. And the guy is just a filmer. Like, he used to do film skateboarders, and he's very much like Thrasher magazine sort of vibe about him. Just good energy. And he's like, I want to make a monster. And he was using this toy he bought from somewhere. He bought a toy from like a guy who's a sculptor, and it was cool. But the what was happening was, he's like, the toy's not your, like, you bought a toy from someone, it's not your creature. Like, you can't ever use this as anything else because the guy never sold the rights to the image. You know what I mean? And he was like, oh my God, you're right. It's like, can you make me a monster? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I've never made a monster before, but usually I've never done it before, but I'll make it for you. That's how my studio kind of works. Like, toss me a funny idea. I'm like, I'm not the first person inventing it. It's not a problem. I just got to figure out how to do it. So I learned how to sew, learned how to do a monster making. I'm making molds of faces. I'm making hands and stuff. And the monster movie I'm making on now is Will Work for Fame is the name of the studio he's working for. But it's like Melvin the Devourer. It's an alien that like eats like 35 millimeter film because the guy works in a theater. He like is a projectionist, so very much his wheelhouse.
Sure.
And but yeah, so I'm currently working on that now. That's the reason I went to school for I'm going to school, the Stan Winston School of Creature Design, like online school, not like going to school, but like I signed up for it, but taking all the classes, and I've been using that to learn how to do more monster making. So so my goal is to make more movies. I've been making movie props for a while too. Like, I've been making, like, I need a gun for this. I need a bloody hand for something. So I've been like, I love Halloween. So I used to make monsters and costumes. So I've been working on my studio now is making more monstery things. So hopefully I'll have more IMDb credits coming up soon. So
nice. Well, I found the one on your portfolio here. I did find the creature design for Melvin the Devourer. This purple, crazy looking Furby. Yep. I don't know how to describe that thing.
I don't know how to describe it either. Yeah, he's like, he's big enough to be as an action figure sort of build. It's 18-inch action figure, so he can fit into action figure clothing if he wants to. Like, he'll fit into like an old school G.I. Joe costume. So you can suit him up if you need to. But he wants to have his little bendable stop motion thing. And I said, it's still learning, but he's super happy with it. Like, I'm like, I've never done it before. Here you go. And he's like, this is more than I ever thought this was going to expect. This is bigger and better than I ever thought of. I want to make more. So I'm currently working on the villain for the movie. Like, it's Marrow is the character's name. He's like another monster, fuzzy creature and stuff. So, and eventually I'm making a full-size kaiju one. Like, I'm doing an 8-foot tall monster of that. And the body frame is over there in a corner. It looks kind of scary. There's a giant pile of monsters staring at me right now. But yeah. So, but yeah, life is short. That's another one. Like, I you know, like I said, I made a monster. Like, last year, I made a monster for a movie. I also made a diorama to go in the MIT Fusion Lab. Like, part of my job, I made an 18-foot long, 3-foot tall. I was with another studio. Same idea. I made friends with a studio who does miniatures and does stuff for the RMSC, and he used to work at the Field Museum. He does dioramas. My Rochester accent has a diorama.
It's really showing in that one.
Oh my God, yeah. I don't know whether we can put the word rock with an A in it somehow. You know? And But yeah, so the dioramas were doing, like, he did it, and I was always curious. I'm like, do I want to do that? That seems like a fun thing to do. And then I went in and realized, like, nah, I don't. I much rather make a big thing, but not micro detail, small things. Like, but that was me. I went and hung out with the studio, and I now have MIT has my name on a plaque saying that we had got a chance to cool build something for a fusion lab. You know what I mean?
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, but that's me. I mean, I just would like kind of help you out for a couple of weeks, sure. And then I got hired full time in the studio, and I worked for a couple of months last year doing a diorama for MIT. So, but that's it. Like, that's my year. It's hard to describe what I do because in 1 year's time, I've done two different things. That's just one of many things I've done. So
Yeah. Well,
but yeah,
it also makes sense why you're such a, or I shouldn't say such a, but you're part of Anomaly in the film festival as well. I have to imagine that
yeah,
there's so
I'm wearing
much
the shirt now.
inspiration there. Yeah, I see it.
Oh
There's
my
got to be
gosh.
so much inspiration from that, just from the non-typical movies. I mean, they
Mhm.
need non-typical props and monsters, right?
Oh my god, and I'm a film nut. Like, reason why I'm on Anomaly Film Festival is because every Wednesday night I used to have a bad movie night for 15 years straight. Every Wednesday night it was called Film Fail. Actually, I still have it.
Film
I don't
fail.
do it. Film Fail Theater. We used to watch, and I tell people it's like much like how a minefield says the word minefield. We're not looking for film fails, but if you find one, you were warned up front, like a minefield. Like you were warned up front. You look out for them. Like, we may hit one. You've been warned.
Hmm.
But I love film, and I love sincere films. Like, you don't have to be the best filmmaker in the world, but if you're sincerely trying to make a film, I am there. I am so there to watch. And so when Anomaly started, they asked me, like, do you want to be on the film, like a board for a film festival? I'm like, yes, my God, I want to be on Anomaly Film Festival because I sincerely appreciate films. Like, I find some people have only watched the best Oscar-winning films, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're amazing films, but I want to watch, like, Killer Sofa, you know what I mean, which is a real movie from Australia. Like I want to watch a movie that makes no sense because I appreciate sincere, weird filmmakers. I also appreciate filmmakers like, we have a budget of $5,000. Let's go for it. And if you're sincerely making a film, I will watch that film.
So
If
you guys played Birdemic?
Oh my God, I've seen Birdemic. Yeah. Just those animated birds is not
Oh
moving.
God.
Oh my God.
Ah.
Well, any sort of asylum film, those sort of ones, like, I used to have, oh my God, we'd watch, so Film Fail was great. We did Wednesday nights, and we used to do double features sometimes, but it got big enough that I would tweet along with it. So we pick a time, like 9 p.m. we'd start a movie, and we tweet along at the same time. So for years, we just had people from different cities. Like, we had friends of mine used to watch movies when they had a kid. They're like, "Oh, I can't watch a movie with you." I'm like, "We don't have to watch at the same time. Just pop it on at 9 p.m. We're going to tweet along back and forth, and we use hashtags to follow along with it." So I've watched the worst and randomest movies. And the cool thing was, it came to a point where you have to present the movie while you got to watch it. Like, I'd have 15, 20 people in my house, and I had a theater in my basement, and I had a big screen in my, I had a pull down projector in my upstairs as well. So we'd have the movie going in two different floors because we had too many people to fit my theater in my basement at one point. And what it was I wanted the person to bring the movie to me why I should watch it. Like, this is a director and you should watch it because of these reasons, or this movie is horrible
Ah.
for these reasons. So it was like the closest I ever get to church. Like, they'd give a presentation ahead of time. Like, if you came to one of mine, if I chose the movie, I would give handouts. Like, okay, here's a paper. Watch it. Like, when you see this scene start, watch the actor in blue. You're not giving anything away, but you're like, oh shit, this is how it does. So Anomaly Film Fest hit me as a sense of, like, listen, you're a film nut. And I get a chance to watch films. Like, we get a lot of films sent to us every freaking week for
Mhm.
submissions, and obviously not all. Like, last year, I watched 120 films that were not we didn't accept them. We only could accept maybe, like, 20 or 30 films out of
Yep.
120. So there's 100 that get cut out. So I get to see films that are not going to be released in the theater that I would have no chance of seeing in my life. And to me, that speaks to me. Like, it's a chance to watch an artist make something that, like, give them my time. A couple of ones I couldn't make it through. A couple of times being like, listen, I'm trying, buddy. I am really trying. I tried. But, like, I legit appreciate a film, a creative person making something, anything, let alone a film, because film has so many working parts. I mean, like a couple projects I looked at, like this movie was made and they had catering involved. Like, that's how much they put into this. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But oh my God, an Anomaly offers a voice for films that I don't think would ever find a place. Like, a couple of movies we've had at Anomaly were very much an Anomaly Film Festival. Like, it's like, this is not going to get this is not going to end up at, like, Sundance. This is not going to end up in anything else.
Mhm.
But it is a gem of a film, and you should watch this because we think it is something like there's a worthiness, little spark to it. And Anomaly is that like I cannot, like I said, I'm proudly wearing an Anomaly shirt right now. I talk about like Anomaly. If I'm out and about talking about film, I'll bring up Anomaly Film Fest within the first 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, like films, Anomaly Film Fest, because we have found these gems of films that I would have never known. And I try to find unusual films. Like I follow, like on Reddit has obscure media and like random movies. Like there's a bunch of subreddits on Reddit that are cool random films you would never see. And even these things I would never, these are brand new too. These are out this year. So I can see cool tech or how Snapchat is suddenly making a comeback into films. You know what I mean? Or there's a lot of random stuff that's happening in there that I don't know. That Anomaly is a wondrous thing that, especially for Rochester, which is, we're a film like city. Like we take weird heavy duty pride in movies, thanks to George Eastman, thanks to all the film festivals around here, RIT and stuff.
Yep.
So like I always compare, like Rochester is to film like Nashville is to, like, I know Hollywood has movies, everything else, but there is a sincerity to movies in Rochester that is not big sweeping blockbuster films. Like you may have seen this one, but here's an awesome film. Like Rochester has a very heavy duty class culture films that is but in all the right ways, not overly snooty. It's like, but we appreciate film here. So
yeah, and it's international too. I mean, I remember growing up here, going to the little theater and watching a French film for the first time, being like, oh, you can watch films in other languages. It translates.
So same thing. I remember going from I came up from like my family farm, not too far away. It's like 45 minutes south of here. But like my mom, going to the city was Henrietta. You know what I mean? The city was like, that was not the city. So I was like 17, 18. I'm like, I'm going to watch a movie at the little theaters, hop in the car, figure out how to get there. Of course, I drove all the wrong ways. Now I look back how I got there, being like, what a winding path to get to downtown. And I show up and it was a film it's a local filmmaker. I think it was Drivers Wanted, and the guy's I forget his name is right now, but it was a local filmmaker showing a film in the little theater, and it was like, wait, local people making movies? I was still like a teenager, not understanding like it's not just big Hollywood stuff. So I show up at a little theater, we watch a film, the filmmaker's there, the cast is there, people that are like in the scene behind me is the scene up there. I'm like, what a weird thing. So I come back the next week to little, like not knowing what's there. I show up again, and again, it was like a foreign film. It was like this, it wasn't French, but it was some subtitle piece, and it was like an action film. And I was sitting there, it was just like blown away. Like it's not the Fox News after school afternoon movie. It wasn't the movie I saw in the big theater. It was something I would never encountered at all. So I suddenly was there. Suddenly I'm at the Dryden Theater for their then I'm like looking around, suddenly realizing what movies can be like. And I was like, oh my gosh. But that's it. The little theater has opened my eyes to so many things in my lifetime. So
the depth of art too, I feel like, is missed upon a lot of people, because you do, to your point, right? You have Hollywood. Okay, cool. You've got your major blockbuster films, et cetera, et cetera. There's such a subculture, and not just in movies, but in painting and sculpture and music and in so many different forms of art that people if you just peel the page back just a little, just go a little deeper, there's so much there.
Thanks to the internet, I gotta say, you can find your home where you're going to be, for good or for worse too. Sometimes I've watched some artists that have fallen down to like that niche rabbit hole. Like one person, like I have a friend of mine who loves My Little Pony, and he does like horror movie stuff. And suddenly he's like, oh, I'm gonna My Little Pony, Cthulhian horror, Eldritch horror, like thing, and the only share is that, and all his artwork is that. I mean, kudos, he enjoys it. But I was like, back up a little bit, join us in the other side of the world. Don't go so down the rabbit hole.
Niche spot right there.
You would think so. There's 15,000 people on this board. He sells he sells commission work. He's constantly doing commission work because he's a very talented illustrator and a painter too. He does paintings. But that's a cool thing. The network, there's a home for you somehow, somewhere on this. It's but that's it. Like there is something you enjoy. There is a community that will enjoy like whatever you're working on right now. And it's just magical.
How has, if I may, to kind of change gears a little bit here.
Please do.
With your artwork and with your work that you've been doing over the last few years, how has it been impacted by the current political climate? Because to be fair, you've got quite a few tweets, for lack of a better word, shitting on some people.
Oh, I try not to do that. I'm sorry if I'm vocal more than I've ever did.
So let me rephrase that then. When I say shitting on people, I mean particular political.
I got you. Okay, good. I make sure I'm trying to be too negative to people.
No, 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 no.
Okay, good,
It's
good,
very
good. I'm always,
directed the way that
yeah,
you
very
think it
directed
would
because
be.
I've become much more political than I ever was before. I gotta say, in the past 4 years alone, like I'm not a fan of Trump. This is the thing. I like Back to the Future. I'm a Back to the Future fan. When you use a character for the villain as the model, Biff Tannen in the Back to the Future 2 is based on Donald Trump. So like I became a very vocal person because we grew up in New York State. You've listened to Trump screw people over for years and years, and suddenly I was watching people like fall for a cult minded like that sort of thing, and I've become much more vocal because I think I think I have to my art has changed. I could be much more. I'm much more likely to do a political cartoon and make a statement. Like I did a Mojo Trump, I call it. One of my favorite pieces I did last year was so I'm an X-Men nut. I love X-Men because I love a team, like again, team sport. I don't need to have Batman fighting himself. I want 20 people doing crazy things, just all fighting random stuff. So I've been an X-Men fan forever. And suddenly, and Mojo character, Mojo enemy is he's from the Mojo verse.
Mm-hmm.
He branches things. He's very much in my mind a very Donald Trump like villain, like B-list kind of random things. So I just merged them together in this. I had to draw it. I just had to get out of my head a Mojo Trump. And so I did that, and I got them printed out big. I sent stickers out, and I think my art I've had okay, here's the thing. When I had my Instagram probably before the Donald Trump got elected, I had almost 20,000 followers. Probably 2 years ago, I had 20,000 followers, and I'm fine. I like being followers. That's nice.
Sure.
But I started posting and being very vocal about how things were not being done right, and like this is not a thing. And I got so much hate mail. Like I had gotten I lost half my followers. I'm down to like 9,000 something there. But here's the randomest thing is it didn't bother me. I thought it would tear me up inside having like all this hate mail. But it was like I posted a comment. I did a draw. I think a couple down over the years just because I just didn't need to have that much hate mail coming at me. But
sure.
like there's a couple of things that are happening being like this is a rude thing to, like children in cages. I make a comment about that, and people are like, oh man, just stick to being what do they call me? Stick to being Mr. Rogers and just painting pretty pictures. And I was like, well, first off, that's Bob Ross. Thank you, buddy, for not getting the same, the PBS character right. But I got much less nervous sharing my opinion when I think it is something that is really like I'm very compassionate. I try to be caring to others, but when I see someone who is just like kind of like vile or just not a like when I'll say Trump just for like I'm not a big fan of Trump. I'm not a big fan of Cruz or Mitch McConnell. I'll say
Sure.
3 people that I really like. The rest of the people, whatever, I can ignore. Those 3 people can have the power to change and do good things, and they don't. So to me, watching someone who has the ability to make a sincere difference in a country and then just being very greedy with whatever they have going on and just like self-centered hurts me. Like I find it's like not how, like I said, I'm not religious. I'm, but if I feel like I'm like quoting or saying like just general nice biblical things, like just don't be an asshole to people. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
And I realized it wasn't happening. I'm like, I'm gonna be vocal, and I got all this random hate mail. I got all this stuff, but it was like people arguing, like they were mad at me because I was complaining about children being like taken away from their parents and in cages. I was like, you're arguing for this? Well, no, I'm not arguing for this, but you should be talking about it. I'm like, someone's got to talk about it. Like it needs to be said. Like I love history. I love facts. The more you learn about history, the more you realize you have to be cautious. You have to be vocal. You have to I know I'm like, we're not in a state where you have like being silenced. I think also I'm a big white guy. Like if you need to have a big white guy on your side, I think sometimes like I can walk up to a cop and not feel too nervous, but like, so I tell people like, I think it is in like my best interest to make sure the world is good. Like if I can make better ripples in that. And I find I became vocal in the past couple years because I just seem like that, like, someone had to like, and this is, I don't know, like I'm less nervous. Please ask more questions. I don't even know how to answer properly.
No, it's okay. Because one of the things that I find interesting about it is that when you look at no matter what side you're on, well, I should take that back a little bit. There's a lot more people on the right side that I see that are so straight to like, here are my talking points and I will ignore everything else.
Yep.
And on the left, you know, and I would argue that you're probably a bit more left than you are right. Is that a
Oh
fair?
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
People like you on the left tend to be much more compassionate towards those type of voices, but at some point, and that's what it feels like kind of happened to you, because on your Mind of Magnus show, you were more than willing to talk to anybody about anything, and let's go, let's have a conversation. Whereas the climate of whether it's society or politics just seems to have that wave kind of finally crested over, and you're like, all right, you know what? This is just becoming outrageous. That's kind of what it seemed like it was.
Very true. And I feel bad because I would gladly have a conversation with someone. Like I've had arguments on Twitter. Like and it's funny. I save certain tweets where someone realizes they're like, "Oh my God, you're just asking questions." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm asking questions. I want to know why you're thinking this." I'm not trying to vocalize. The trouble is, like you said, there's a bunch of people that gotta get their talking points, and they are the loud ones, and there's broadcast over the people that are not that far over. So I found myself being a person that I gladly jump over, like I can walk across an aisle and say hi to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I'll gladly listen to someone. I'll gladly communicate with someone. There's actually some Republican talking points that I fully agree with. I can't think of any right now off my hand, but but I'm not Democrat either. Like I'm not a person. I think all the team sport, like the tribalistic view, is not a conversation. They're just all trying to get. That is not how I work. But like you said, my radio show, I want to bring someone on. I'll gladly talk to a person who is, whatever differing views from me is not something that's an end of a conversation to me. The ability to not have a communication and have a conversation is where I got. And that's the trouble with social media. Everyone's a blurb. Everyone sends 140 characters, 280 characters, whatever it is now. So I found myself on Twitter having to be short with people, and I don't like that. But I'll have a diatribe back and forth with people, and eventually someone realizes I'm not being an asshole. I'm not trying to shoot you down, but I need to understand where you're coming from in this. Tell me, understand, help me understand why you're thinking this way. Because if you can convince me, awesome. You're probably not, but I've had to be more vocal because I think there's a lot of people that have been unfortunately programmed with the same 12 talking points, and it is tough to deal with the same people. And this is my thought in like the Republican versus Democrat. Republicans will take three ideas, lump together, and do a team. Like they can join forces of a loose tangent. Like you agree with this and this and this. We're buddies. We're going to fight to the end.
Yep.
Democratic finds I've always find like you don't believe my one flavor enough. I don't want to follow you. So there's a lot of division happening in Democratic side. I always feel like you have to be very much past all these tests to be in their very small club. Like the guys on the other team joined over, like they just don't like abortion. They may not agree with anything else. They just don't agree with that, or they don't agree with X, Y, or Z. So they take minimalist points and kind of lump together. So I found that I could try to talk and try to do something. I'll get like, I may not be enough for the Democratic, but I can also be not enough for the Republican. So I find myself in that realm of like conversing back and forth. So it's just rough. Like being like, I'm much more political than I ever was. I've done political cartoons, which I'm very happy with. Like I've actually been trying to I've been submitting comics to political cartoon comics to places, and one of these days it may show up when something comes up that way. But
yeah,
I find myself life is short. I have a girlfriend that's also very vocal. Like she's a person that when she sees something not being done right, don't be afraid to say it. And I'm like, I'm not as intense as she is. I'm kudos that she is that way. I'm a person that I'll definitely vocalize when I see something. If I see like this is not how we should be doing. Like we're in the future now. I'm one of those guys that fully believes that we can make the life better for everyone. Like we're at a state now of science that if we just can listen and do it right, we would end suffering. I think we have enough knowledge and understanding of what makes life makes life good, makes life better for each other, and understanding of how humans work that we can kind of even understand why we do bad things to people. So like I think we have a potential to make a better universe if we just like come together and stop kind of fighting over stuff. Like, listen, we have like, you want your perfect world, we can make it. Like so I'm one of those people that I think we have to vocalize a bit more because I'm weirdly always an optimist. I fully believe that we're going to have like at the end of this, we're going to be good. Just stop being assholes to each other. Like communicate, so
you tweeted something that I'm going to read, hopefully verbatim, pretty close, which I took as a sign of like, okay, I see where this guy wants to go. And it was the goal of America is to form a more perfect, in quotes, union. To build and create something perfect as a person that builds things, I have to remind myself that the need to cut away parts is a vital thing. Not all the materials I started with are in the finished work. That to me like hits the nail on the head, when you talk
Thank God.
about like how we do politics today. Like, oh, we can never let go of this thing, whatever that thing might be for you, but
Mhm.
we have to be able to kind of slice and dice a little bit and make those changes, because not only do people grow and change and humanity moves on, but more importantly, technology, as you pointed out. I mean, now I
Mhm.
can talk to you instantaneously, like Star Trek type shit, and right there's gonna have to be regulations. There's gonna have to be things that we have to do, and we have to cut away small things, but we do also need to add things. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
just
yeah.
taking it away.
It's a building. That's what
Yes.
I always remember. When I say the more perfect union, that's what the like the highest court in the land is literally designed to help make a more perfect union.
Hmm.
It's an active process. Like our society is not perfect. We're trying to make a more perfect, and that's not a goal. It's a path and action you're taking with a trajectory. There's no such thing as perfect. There's a bullseye you're aiming for that you're always trying to aim for. Like
Hmm.
I never get to a point like, oh, I'm perfect now. I'm done. Oh, this is great. Like, no. If you get that point, you're gonna hit by a bus. The moment you think you're perfect, you're probably done. But like I had to realize, and I remember like that tweet when I went out, I was sitting there with plastic. I was trying to work on something. And back in the day, if I had a piece of wood that I'm like, oh, I'll try to make it fit in there. I was trying to make a piece of wood fit into a sculpture or something else I was working on. And I realized the whole piece doesn't need to fit. It needs to be this piece. The rest of it, while awesome looking thing, didn't do anything for the end result. It was me trying to force a piece into something that is just because the piece existed in there. Nope, no, I shouldn't do that. Like I, the ability to know when to trim away is a skill set that I think everyone needs to learn as they get older. Like especially like I would love to keep every single person in my life as a friend. Not all people grow with each other. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
There, and that's the unfortunate nature of humanity. And nothing bad. I have old friends of mine that I would love to talk with and love to see, but their path has just gone a different path than me. I mean, not saying like it's like, oh, he's a horrible person because of this. It's just like we just don't gel. We don't have a good conversation. We don't have whatever it is, the nature of that. And that's how some of my projects I've worked on, they've grown. If I look at the end project and what I started with, you're like, oh, wow, that's not where I was going to go when I was starting with it. But the end result is exactly where it's supposed to be. And if I had tried to force the original concept to be the end result, it wouldn't have worked. It would have been fine. I mean, like not saying it was horrible, but the end result was either through organic work with other people, with just realizing once you're involved in it, sometimes you realize I didn't understand what was involved until I'm involved in it. Now I realize that would never have worked. I mean, good direction, but I was just, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I
Hmm.
didn't realize I didn't know it until I'm involved in the other project. So I'm glad that tweet read well. It's one of my favorite tweets. I wrote it out being like, you know what? Every once in a while I have these little moments where I'm like, you know what? I need to tweet something that feels like like it's a thought. It's a bigger thought, a bigger than
Hmm.
me thought. It's anything else. Let's get this out in the real world. So,
To me, that was one of your home run ones as I was reading through a lot
yay!
of
Awesome.
them.
Oh my God, I'll be quoted one of these days. Like, quote hyphen, Magnus. There you go. So,
Magnus.
yeah,
It works. It works. So
good,
let me
good.
keep going here a little bit
Please.
more, and let me ask you why weren't you able to become a marine biologist?
Oh, because I love marine biology, but all like I was in the Red Sea in 2004. I think is the last time I was really doing 2004, 2005 is when I realized I was going to be a marine biologist because all I was watching was everything die. This is horrible to say. I went into marine biology because I used to I had another ex. This is how my stories usually go. I had an ex that was a marine, like she was a biology nut. Like she actually is a botanist now. She went to school and became a botanist, but she had fish tanks like crazy, and I never had fish tanks. I had like one goldfish as a kid, and I was telling, I'm looking at one of these pet shops, and I was watching and seeing these amazing animals coming in that people had no idea how to care for. So I started like researching animals. And I remember one time I was sitting in a pet shop and there was this really cool fish. And it was like a common name, whatever it was, like some sort of like a plecostomus or whatever it is, a catfish. And I'm like, oh, cool. This is a neat name. What's the Latin name for it? And they're like, oh, well, it's an L7346, whatever it is. I'm like, what's the Latin name? I was like, oh, science hasn't named it yet. I'm like, wait, what? Science hasn't named it? You can sell it as a pet? And they're like, yeah, that's kind of like then I realized there's a bunch of animals that were just being captured and sold as pets. And I was like, what the heck? This is really weird. So I started writing articles about pet care, pet trade, and then I started drifting to what the pet trade was doing to wild stock of animals. So, and aquariums are easy because you can kind of see where they come from, and you can go see where they came from and what happens afterwards. So, I was going and studying like where certain animals were being kept or certain animals were being like caught, and like how like humans like that's a really colorful blue fish. I love it. So they get the blue fish. Well, the blue fish is the male. The dull females like there's one male for a 200-foot radius. Well, if there's no male, those other females don't breed for the season and they're gone. So like there was wild stock animals being captured and just decimated. The population is being decimated every time you take one of them out of there. So I'm in the Red Sea and I'm floating on a boat. And this is the exact moment it happens. I'm floating on a boat, and I've been scuba diving all day. And I've been like, because like just research. I was looking at, I like pufferfish. Is one of the things I used to like a lot.
Okay.
And I'm studying the panda puffer in the Red Sea. And plus, I'm just hanging out too. I got a chance to go to Egypt and scuba dive for fucking 3 weeks. So I'm like, gladly be there.
That was a
So,
yes. That was a
yes. That was a yes. Oh my, yes, 100% yes. Oh my god, yes, I'll be there. Like, I'll gladly be home. Oh my god, totally yes. So, and they're going to pay for it too. I was going for research. I was scuba diving, and so I spent time. Actually, I worked for myself then too. So I took months off. So I lived in Egypt for a while, and but I'm scuba diving in the Red Sea, and I'm on the boat, and the sun is setting, and the people are diving. They wanted to watch the twilight time of what happens, like at certain times, like what comes out, what like that transition time is really cool because like certain things come out because I won't be eaten now. Other things are hiding because they're going to get eaten even faster.
Right.
So
right.
Like a lot of coral, like some nighttime coral will spawn and breed and stuff. So I am in the I'm on the top of the boat, and there's an older guy sitting, and he's just looking out. And I'm what I was doing actually. Some of my first sketches and drawing was learning how to draw the animals I scuba dived with. Like I came up, my photography skills are horrible underwater, but I can come up and like I saw this, so I can draw what I saw, and then kind of was sketching out and kind of writing notes down. So I'm drawing there. And the guy is just facing away. It's only him and I on the boat. And the guy who's the captain of the boat is just an Egyptian guy. And he's just kind of doing his own thing, whatever. And the guy vocalized, he just starts talking. Like we're having a conversation that I didn't realize we're having, I guess. But he's like, I can't do it anymore. It's like by 2020, it's all gonna be gone. And I'm like, what? He's like, by 2020, there's going to be so many things gone. Like he just came from the he was a marine biologist, and he just came from I would say like Australia. He was studying coral down there, and he's like, when you dive next, look at all the white spots in there. Look at all the bleached areas. That is scars on this thing, and they'll never get better. That scars will only grow. I'm sitting, and I'm like probably so this is 15 years ago now. Like so I'm like 20s 30s, and he's talking away, and he's like, I just came from an area that was completely decimated. Like not decimated, gone. I keep saying the word decimated. Decimated is one. I always say decimated is 1/10. This is like there's leftovers 1/10. He's like the coral I just came from the study. I was there in 3 years. I watched it all die. And now I'm here scuba diving. And he was like, I like the Red Sea because this is going to be the last to die, I think. So that's why I'm here. And I was like, and he's just talking, and he's just giving this whole, oh my God. And I'm processing. He's like, yeah, why he's there is what we're all doing right now is documenting, like, and what I'm doing too. I'm just documenting the underwater universe.
The death of this reef. That's what it sounds like you're documenting.
That's all it was. And I realized I had no understanding of what I really was doing. I was just documenting it before it was gone. And I was like, this guy's an older guy. Like he's in the 60s, and he was a guy who was with like Cousteau. Like he traveled the world doing scuba diving. Like he was a known, like, and he was a marine biologist. He specialized in some sort of interaction with like the small crustaceans and like corals and stuff. Like he's very niche thing. So, and he was studying that, and he's like, yeah, I watched some of the stuff go on, just watching it die, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I realized, and he goes, the moment you see all those scars, you'll never be able to unsee those scars, and you'll never see them get better. And sure enough, it was like I was in the water, and I'm looking down, and when coral die, the coral the skeleton is bright white. Mm-hmm. So as the coral pulls away, the skeleton behind it is just, and it's bright white for a bit, and then it just becomes mossy and dirty. Not mossy, but like algae will grow on it, and it's not a pretty thing. It looks like, and I watched, and so from 2004 to 2005 or so, I realized like my trajectory was doing like the design studio stuff, but I was taking months off and scuba diving in between. Like I work with a design studio and take like 3 or 4 months off because I set up projects that way. I always designed myself to have like months to do other projects to work on. So that's what I was. I was in Egypt scuba diving for that reason. And he said that, and he was just like, yep. And this is 2004. And like a lot of his predictions, oddly enough, came true. Like he was talking, I remember him saying it was like the Great Barrier Reef. He looks at it, he's like, you should go to it now because you'll never see it any better than this year right now. And he was being true. He wasn't being facetious. He was just one of those guys. He was sitting there just watching the sunset, and like, I wish I could say we're stoned talking, but it was that level of like just that deep process thing.
Right,
And
right.
he was just at a point where he was sad to see everything dying. And the ocean has been dying long before the Amazon, everything else, because people have been dumping stuff in there. He goes, the stuff that he studied, he goes, every year I try to study something, it's usually gone before I could, like, I have to target it. I have to, like, go find it. He's like, and it was rough. Like his words of it. He was like, all you're gonna do is try to rush to document it before it's all gone. That's all your job gonna do. Like, unless you want to try to save it, and it's even worse then because then you got to deal with, like, fill in blank here. What's happening? Like, one of the guys. Here's an example too. One of the guys that are on that boat with me, or one of the people on the trip, maybe not that exact boat, but one on the trip.
Right.
His study was a very specific bay in Central America where this type of river came out, and the way the type of minerals in the ground had a higher sort of content, and the creatures that were happening there was only found in this sort of area. And he's talking about it. It was like, to hear him talking about it, you would love it. Oh my God. As a person who loves people, listening to this man talk about this one single bay where he's been spending 5 years working on it caught me. Like, it was just, I loved it. Oh my God. It was one of those amazing experiences. And he's still on cloud nine. He's like me, about same age as me. So he is all like, the world is taking off. We're still working on it. This is going to be great. And fast forward probably about 10 years later, I just, one of the guys I was traveling with died, unfortunately passed away. And like, he's an older guy. So he passed away. And so we're kind of like, oh, so-and-so passed away. That's kind of sad. And just shooting the shit. Like, just, you know how you touch base with people for various reasons. Unfortunately, it's usually a wedding or a death. Unfortunately, that's how it works as you're an adult now.
Yeah.
But so this guy dies and we're talking before this time. I'm like, oh man, how's everything going with that space down there? And he's like, yeah, a mining facility dumped all their wastewater into the river and it killed everything. Like, it annihilated the whole area is dead. I'm like, he was like, he wasn't being facetious. He was like, the entire area was wiped out. Like, we're trying to repopulate it now, but the entire area is gone. Like, all the intricate things. Like, he was finding specialized species in this bay. Like, there was very small copepods in there, and certain type of anemone that had, like, not anemone because it was on the Atlantic side, but like, he was finding stuff, and we're talking on the phone first. We're texting back and forth, then we had a kind of a chat. Yeah. But listening to that man who was like, yeah, my entire universe I was studying is gone. Every single fish, everything, the thing was gone. Like, and he is now that man sitting in the back of the boat being like, it's all gonna be gone, everything else. And like, reason I didn't do it, it broke my heart. Like, and that's the saddest way to say it. The reason I no longer do it was I couldn't be the guy in the water documenting the last stage of a species life thing. That is like, and that once I was told that, I could never unthink it. Like, I cherished it. I cherished every dive even more so. But it was an awkward thing to realize what my end goal would be. Is like, you got to draw these pictures because that fish made around anymore. And it hit me in a weird sort of way. And it still does. But here's the thing. It instilled my desire to help, that I work with the Seneca Park Zoo. I'm on zoological boards. I'm trying to reforest Madagascar now. I'm trying to do, like, help other projects. And I realize me in the water is not going to make a difference. Aside from loving to swim and love with scuba dive.
Sure.
I would much rather put my weird schmoozy ability to talk, interact, draw, use art. I've been using those skills for the past 10 years to help all the other projects. Like, I've been on randomist boards. I helped out our aquariums back in the day. Like, I'd volunteer to bring animals in for breeding programs. Like it instilled me. I still love it, but I could not be a marine biologist because I didn't have the heart anymore. I literally just cut it out of me in a horrible, sad sort of way. I'll tell you that. I don't tell a lot of people the whole story, but
yeah, sure.
That's literally why I didn't become a marine biologist, because that was my goal. Because I love biology. I love animals. I love, like, watching how things work. Like, animal intelligence was my favorite things. Like, I was doing pufferfish, but I get a kick out of it, like cephalopods and brains and like I like pufferfish because they're smart. They're oddly a smart animal. They can process you. They're like dogs kind of thing. But oh my God, watching areas die. Like, a friend of mine sent me pictures. We were supposed to go scuba diving in Tonga, and I couldn't make it because of, like, a life event happened. They showed me, so I had these pictures back in there. And a friend of mine went back a little bit ago, and the reef that they were doing was annihilated. Like, it was dead. Like, the whole area is like, we have to go out 2 more miles to find the reef to do it. Like, and that was unchanged for 65 million years since the last, like, massive thing happened in there. That the ocean is one of the most stable environments ever. Like, the ocean doesn't change a whole lot aside from waves and water. Nothing changes for pH.
That's
Something
more
else
kind of up top.
Yeah, but even a massive storm will pull nutrients from the water.
Okay.
Like a change of pressure will move stuff around. Like you'd be amazed at what a storm above will do just for the ground. But it's not like massive, like because, but watching this and seeing like there's nature that like 2-degree difference in some of these fish and coral kill it. Like there is, and there's actually people in Rochester that actually work with coral reef and stuff, everything, and they were trying to save certain coral, and they realized the coral there, it is within a degree or two because it was such a stable environment that if you went up a degree, it would kill it. And they're like, yeah, and of course that's the reason the coral's gone now.
Jeez.
Is that species because we went up a couple degrees in the ocean in this area, and they're like, yeah, the coral couldn't handle it because the coral, it's too warm and can't, it's just it's a very delicate creature. Like coral are not plants. They're an animal. They're like its own sort of thing. Like, and the coral uses algae and other type of like they're photosynthetic creatures they share lives with. Well, if you go too warm, it kills the photosynthetic things, and they're very so delicate. There's a very small level that they figured out how to be that niche to live in, and that's all the ocean is. The ocean is the most smallest niches ever, and something evolved into this very specific thing, and that's so. So the guy I was, it's cascade effect is called. When one thing starts dying, another thing starts dying, and that niche animals start falling apart. If you get enough of them in, it's just a natural thing. They're all going to fall apart. So we've been in a cascade effect since 2005, 2006 of certain areas where it's like you can't. It's an unstoppable force now because we've lost too many of the other things.
So you just exponentially lose.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it is that was there.
Yep, a cascade effect is, and it becomes only one. And the worst thing is, you'll start having only a handful of very specific things taking over everywhere. Like kudzu is a plant that grows in South. If you've been down to Texas, you've been down in southern part of America. Kudzu is a type of plant that just grows everywhere, and there's nothing to eat it, and it just grows, and it's taking over because everything's been niche dying off. That has been like, I can keep evolving. Well, that's the trouble with the ocean too. We have like certain things that can survive well. Once the niche thing's gone, they just like, oh, clear area to go, and that just takes over too. So there's just the cascade effect is everything dying down and everything else taking over. It's just horrible. So that's what it is. The horrible, and not to be a negative spin to it, but
Right.
It cut me. Like I'm still like I had a discussion a couple of weeks back or a month or so back about this, and it was the right moment in time I started talking about it, and I got wistful. Like I had like a tear in my eye thinking of the universe that I was seeing, and all I could see was death. All I could see was a loss. Like it was tough. Not gonna lie. And again, I love biology. The interaction of animals, like creatures, and the diversity on our planet is as close as I get to a religious experience. Is understanding how much life has got diversity on our planet. Just crazy things, and seeing that again, like I right now I can start. If I talk about it more, I'll start getting wistful, like tear up and sort of thing. So,
well, let me change it and ask you about one last thing.
Okay.
And that is, I have in my notes here the Murder Crows artwork. And
I love Murder Crows.
That thing just touched a very specific spot because on Mount Hope, I remember leaving work and it was like dusk and just walking out and realizing there was like what seemed to be 100,000 of these things everywhere.
Yeah. Like a tree would be empty with leaves, but it's a tree's full. Like you think that, yeah. And I was trying to describe to a friend of mine who's not from around here. I'm like, oh, you have a bunch of crows. I'm like, I don't have a bunch of crows. I think we have all the crows. Like there is, oh my God, when you bring your daughter over, it's like, so I'm at my studio's at the High Falls. So literally they love roosting downtown. And the reason I like crows, they're smart animals. Like you can, like I can watch them, and I have, you'll again, biology, so I watch the crows roost across the door. Here is a gorge. Like if I walk out my back door, it's High Falls Gorge. I can see the High Falls from my studio. And, I would see just the trees who are empty of leaves, pitch black. Like imagine a tree that has just black leaves on it. It's the best way to describe it. There's that many crows just hanging out. You're like, oh, this is a beautiful thing. Like there's so many. Of course, I walk over there and they'll be all kind of roosting. And I have been inadvertently feeding them. I have this weird, like I said, I like intelligence.
No, so Magnus.
No, this is fine. What I don't feed them where I'm at. I feed them where they are going to be anyway.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. No. So what I've been doing though, I've been feeding the crows, and I've been putting down shiny, like I put quarter. Like if I find loose change in the ground, I'll put it in a pile, and I take washers, anything shiny. So I've been feeding them in a very specific area, and I've been putting down washers next to them, just see what happens. and I'll come back the next day and there'll be new coins. Like I've been trying to like see if they're trainable. So I'm like, I want the crows. I want every crow to bring me money. So I've been slowly training all these crows. I got like a 5-pound bag of peanuts. I'll put them out there, and I always thought that crows would be kind of cool. Now they start fighting over they fight over stuff, and I thought they'd be like. So I've been kind of watching them. Like I've been writing notes. I've been like taking videos of them. So fast forward, I just like I love them. I'll be drawing stuff. Like I like birds. It's good form and stuff. And NPR did a whole story on them, and they asked me. They're like, "Hey, we looked about art," and so I was talking about it. And I couldn't join in the conversation. They're going to interview people. I'm like, but the guy mentions like, "But can I use that art, that big murder crow drawing you had there?" I'm like, "Yeah, oh my god, totally, I love it." So yeah, that's my thing. Like I it's part of my life. I enjoy it's a component of Rochester. Have these crazy murder of crows, just so many all hanging out. Like and like you got it. Like you walking outside and just seeing these massive amounts. Like it's like a movie set. Like I remember walking out and I remember, oh my god. So the park across from Jiva Theater is whatever that is. I can't think of it. But so I'm walking through middle of the night and there's just it's dead silent and there's crows everywhere. And I'm like walking, I have like a long black coat on and I'm like, this is a movie scene. My God. So all of a sudden I take the coat and it's like, I clap my hands or something else and I put the coat open. And all of a sudden every crow just like flies out there. And I was like, I wish I could have had a moment of like capturing that on film. It was like just a million crows all of a sudden just taking off. And I'm like standing there like in a black crow. Oh my God. It was like somewhere the goth version of me is very happy. You know what I mean?
They should have filmed Birdemic here just with all
the
my
God. It would have been so much easier than those just birds just staying in midair.
And to tie it back to Loveline, Adam Carolla, he was on Hot Ones. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
The Hot Wings. Yeah.
Dude, they got a whole thing of him splicing, just talking about how awesome crows are.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Like,
I haven't
just
seen
going on and on about it.
Dude, I'm impressed with them. Like I used to have an African gray parrot. Long story. I worked at a software company for a while, and their mascot was an African gray parrot. And the guy bought him just because he'd be like, oh, cool to have a parrot, not realizing it's a very smart animal that like needs a good home. So I took care of the bird for years. The bird's still alive. She's 27 or 28 now, and I found her a perfect home. She's spoiled. It's great, But I watched her brain work. I'm like, that's a smart animal in there. And then I realized looking at birds, being like, oh, there's a smart animal in all these freaking birds. It's really freaking cool. And yeah, watching the crows and watching that sort of stuff made me realize like there's a dynamic going on here that I don't understand. I have to kind of get to see it, and it's like again, it's just a crazy cool thing, especially to be able to see that many crows in a downtown setting, just kind of living their best life. So again, I don't feed them where my studio's at. I feed them over there, and they never come over here, never make a mess or anything else. So, but. So crows.
Walking out that one night, it was the first night that it happened to me, and then afterwards you're just kind of like, oh, there are the crows. But that first time it happens, you're just like, holy shit. Am I about to be attacked?
Yeah, you're like looking around, they're all staring at you, they're all quiet. You're like, and just like,
insanely quiet.
Yeah, and you know that there's 1,000 eyes all on you. It's not like they're like looking around, they're all like, hey, human. They're just like all looking and they're all kind of side-eyeing you. I'm like, not gonna rob you guys. Don't kill me. Like I don't want to get picked to death. I don't want to have like, local news today, a skeleton found with bird feathers all over it. Like no, but yeah, I was happy. I got a chance to share my artwork. That one went on NPR and went out to the whole like. It's one of those projects that I was happy to have my artwork shared on a national public radio on something about the city of Rochester. So that was just. It was fun. Oh my gosh, I loved it, and I had fun drawing. I'm trying to do more digital drawing. That's where that spawned from. So if I can share my digital drawings, like it doesn't cost me a whole lot to make. It's not like material usage. So if I can use drawing in that way, it helps me. Like that's value to me. Like that, I don't get paid a lot. I didn't get paid anything for that, to be honest with you. But what I paid in was being asked by NPR to make artwork for them. Like that's cool. Yeah, that struck me. That's how my studio works. I don't make a lot of money at my studio, but I get paid well in what matters to me, like those sort of projects, like this sort of thing. This matters to me in my studio, that I can be here right now talking to an awesome person who's legit curious, who wants to talk about things. Side note, best questions, by the way, you actually did research. Most podcasts just like, hey, we're going to talk. Let's go. That's fine. Not like, okay, I'm going to quote your tweet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to remember what I said.
I got to do homework on the people that I talk to. Otherwise, it won't be interesting. It won't be interesting.
Exactly. So you get it. Like that's what I did my radio show. Like I'll spend my whole week deep diving. I love catching someone off guard. Like, so when you said this, or 5 years ago when you were here, like, oh my God, I forgot I even did that. Like those are the moments where you pull the person back into their own life. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So yeah. So kudos.
I've had a lot of people afterwards be like, I forgot about a lot of the shit that I did. Thanks for reminding me.
Dude, I have forgotten more stuff. Like I get reminded weekly what I had done, and that's good. I much rather have a life that's so full that I've forgotten things. Like I had a meeting with a guy forever ago back, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we did." And he starts talking about this project, and this is like 15, 20 years ago, about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years, but 15 years ago. And I first I knew the guy, and I first had thought that he was just kind of telling like, "Oh, he did this," and he starts telling the story, and then as he's telling the story, I realize I'm in the story, and I'm like, "Wait, that's me! Oh my god, that's right, we did do that, didn't we? That was a great thing. Holy cow!" That's what my goal in life is to do. I want to know how to do everything. For as bad as that sounds, I want to learn everything. I want to know how to do everything. Because I think that if you know a lot about a lot of things, you can kind of fill in the gaps between it to understand even more. Like if you have a grand scheme of things, you can kind of fill those dots in to fill understandings of. So that's the reason I like factoids. The reason I read the random things, the reason I talk to people is I want to understand this entire universe. I want to understand as much as I can. And I do it by asking people. Like everyone knows something I don't know. So I want them to tell me what I should know, what the cool thing, like even a kid knows what the best, character is from a movie or what, X, Y, or Z. Like to chance to share an experience and, those things help me understand the universe I am in, because I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on at any point in time, but I help to understand by listening to other people tell stuff and kind of get an understanding of what this current universe is. Like I'm stuck in my own timeline. I can't do any more than that, but to talk to other people and to learn from them, to learn to expand me is what my goal is. Try to, get as much as I can involved before I, kick the bucket. So
I share the same goal, and I'm super glad that Matt said, "Hey, I got a guy you should talk to."
Good. Oh my God, I'm so glad.
Come out to the studio. I'm really looking forward to being able to not just see more of your work as time goes on, but hopefully be able to pick your brain here and there as well.
You can always message me. And actually, side note, I do want to get my podcast going. I'm trying to do it like once a month. I'm trying to push up my Patreon page. Like I've been neglecting my Patreon page a lot. So if you want to find me, Magnus Apollo and everything I do. But my Patreon page, I'm trying to get more. And people keep asking me, like, "You gonna do more of a podcast?" Like they've enjoyed them. Like I get messages not weekly, but about once or twice a month. I'll get a person like, "Hey man, you gonna do a podcast again? I like listening to you." I'm like, "Really? Oh my god!" I just feel like the guests are awesome, but I may do more. But if you come up, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna do like a quick impromptu podcast here as well. So.
I'm in.
Oh my God.
I'm in 100%.
Perfect.
But either way, I appreciate your time, Magnus. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you as time goes on, man.
Perfect. Can't wait to myself.